Cái mà cộng đồng đây Albert Einstein. Còn mấy giờ ấy? Như nhau à? Physical meaning of geometrical proportion, system of coordinates, space-time in classic mechanics, Galilean system and coordinates, the principle of relativity, substitution the velocity employed in classical mechanics, the incompatibility of law and progression of life with principle of finality, or the idea of time in physics, the relativity of simultaneity, on the relativity, the conception of this, the Lorentz transformation, the behavior of measuring rods and block in motion theorem, addition of the velocity, the experiment of physics, the theoretical of theoretical of relativity, the general of theories, experience of the special theory of relativity, means scope in 4 dimensions space, the general theory of relativity, special of general principle of relativity, the gravitational fields, the equality of inertia and gravitation, mass and argument for general postulates of relativity, in what respect are the foundation of classical mechanics and of the special theory of relativity, and satisfactory few inference from the general principle of relativity, behavior of clock and measuring rod, and a rotating body of different equation of non-Euclidean continuum motion coordinates. The space of continuum of special theory of relativity consider are Euclidean continuum, the space-time continuum of the general theory of relativity is not Euclidean continuum. Exact formulation of general principle of relativity, the solution of the problem of gravitation on the basis of general principle of relativity, but the consideration of the universe as a whole, cosmological difficulties of different theories, the possibility of a finite and thus unbound universe, the structure of space according to general theory of relativity, the simple derivation of the Lorentz transformation means calculate 4 dimensions space works, the experimental confirmation of the general theory of relativity, commentary by Robert Garratt, verifies the principle of relativity, the propagation of light, relativity of and intuition, mass, and the conversion of energy to mass, space-time in internal and gravitational mass, the rotating fixed space-time and general relativity, special relativity and general relativity, cosmology, the control legacy of relativity theory by David Cassidy, bibliography index. Introduction. Albert Einstein put forward his special theory of relativity in 1995. He fully formulated his general theory 10 years later. In 19 1915, publishing in his account of Joe theory in this book, Relativity's actual and general theory first appeared in the original German edition, also in 19, 1916, 1916, 1916, 1916, 1916 is remarkable and, in my views, very gratifying that he should have produced such an account for the lives of public so soon after his general theory was complete. The theories in particular present an extraordinary and revolutionary view of the physics school, providing profound insight for our conception of space-time and gravitation. This view has now superly survived the test of time when Einstein first pushed forward his general theory almost 19 years ago. There were inevitably a deeply widespread curiosities among the general public as to actual nature of his revolutionary idea, and there were equally inevitable scope for misunderstanding of world of various kinds that was occurring and immediately this was accessible account from the master himself. Relativity has enormously in minimizing such misunderstanding, but even today, Germany physicists were evolutionally come to terms with the revolution in physics worldview that Einstein presented. The briefing of Einstein Ascal to coincide with the centenary of the special theory is therefore in this family. In this edition, we are also fortunate in having the advantage of an excellent exposition of Einstein's theoretic idea on relativity from more modern perspective. In Robert Perot's commentary, it should be pointed out that the relativity revolution is what the general theory that was Einstein's most uniquely original contribution, especially relativity and the relativity theory that Einstein put forward, among other fundamental advances in what has become known as his miraculous year of 95 were far less uniquely Einstein's own achievement. Thus, theory was concerned with the puzzling transformation that mix up space and time as ellipses when the relative velocity between the reference frame of different observers across that of light. But the transformation has been in the as from time period to extend entering the stream other before him, particularly the outstanding Dutch physicist Hendrik Antoon Lorentz, the great French mathematician Henri Poincaré has already formulated the essential idea and transformation several years before Einstein, although they have not appreciated the full nature of the revolution, nor the virtue of catching the relativity principle are axiomatic for physics. Fox generally experienced the British physicist Joseph Larmor also has the transformation composed of them, and there were particular results of this nature early still by the German physicist Werner Voigt and the Irishman George Francis Drake. Moreover, it in my view that even Einstein have not fully understood the nature of special relativity in 1905. 1905. It was not until 1908 that the final mathematical insight was provided by the highly original physician German Hermann Minkowski, who has considered the linking of Einstein's picture at the Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich in the next 1819. It was Minkowski's idea to combine time with space and to describe physical process as inhabitant of the four-dimensional space now refers to as space-time. It took Einstein some while to appreciate the visual of Minkowski, the four-dimensional perspective. Even in the account that he gives here, he betrays some unease, which means Minkowski's viewpoint in facing the anonymous with experience geometry, but with an imaginary time coordinate measure in unit involved, which I regard somewhat misleading, and he does not describe this space geometry in the way that I believe to be most physical, indirect, physically reliable curves in space-time are timeline, and hence is reflected in more modern accounts. The matrix is really supplying a measure of time, the curve rather than in the excellent exposition by the relativity experts and John Newton signifies Hamilton. It has been emphasized that space-time geometry is really chronometry rather than geometry in the ordinary sense, so that it's global that express the metric better than Mr. Rule that Einstein used in his description ruler to lost directly measure space-time interval because they require in addition some means of determination of simulation needs rather confusing in this regard. However, they do directly provide a measure of timeline space-time interval. They directly provide a vast and subtly accurate measure the space-time geometry in this modern definition of matter is now given in terms of a time measure, precisely. I would say that in many respects in this book will be enjoyed as much for historical insight. Con quỷ trong tôi